views and opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of Access Fort Wayne, the Allen County Public Library, or any other supporting groups. If you'd like to produce a show, call us at 260-421-1250.
Let me be your lighthouse so I can show you the way. Let me be your shining light, I'll keep you from drifting away. I'm the one that makes you try when...
Well, welcome to my show, Patty's Page. This is Patty Hunter with my special guest star, Mr. Bob Eubanks. Hello, sir. Welcome to
How are
my
you
show.
this morning?
I'm
Hello,
doing
hello,
great.
hello.
It's 12 noon here. It's 9 o'clock there.
Yeah, and it's rained last night.
Oh, did it?
It's the first time we've had any rain for a long time. So,
Well, I have several questions for you, sir.
okay, I'm ready.
Where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in Flint, Michigan. My parents came from the hills of Missouri. And when the Depression came along, all of the hillbillies moved up to Michigan to make automobiles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was born there. But then the war came along and all the hillbillies moved to California to make airplanes. And so I had my second birthday out here in California. So I'm a Californian.
We used to live there.
Where'd you live?
Rancho Santa Margarita.
Santa Margarita.
Yeah.
Sounds
Santa
familiar.
Margarita. What?
What was that near?
They're, what was it? Just east of Laguna Beach.
Oh, okay. Orange County, down that area. All right.
Okay, who mentored you as you were growing up?
Well, I was an only child, so my mother and father, my dad was a barber.
Mm-hmm.
Remember one day that he and two other barbers in the shop took in $100. They were charging $1 for a haircut. So, I had a pretty normal childhood, really. I went to, junior high school, then I went to Glendale High School, then I went over to Pasadena High School, but I wanted to be a disc jockey most of my life, most of my younger life anyway. So when I got out of high school, I was delivering furniture, by the way, for $1 an hour. And I enrolled in the Don Martin School of Radio and Television in Hollywood. And at that time, I was working at the Egyptian Theater, too, down the street. But I was there with the big, deep voice guys that have just come out of the Korean War. And here, this little twerp, Bob Eubanks, with a very high voice, really. But then my first job I got in radio was at a little 250-watt radio station in Oxnard, California. And I kid because 200 watts went into the ocean and 50 watts went to the cemetery next door. Midnight to 8 in the morning. And I decided I was going to have, like all the big guys, I was going to have a rock and roll album giveaway contest. And the station wouldn't give me the album, so I went and bought 2 of them. And I must have mentioned it 100 times. And finally, I finally said, okay, tell you what I'm going to do. I'll give them to the first person that calls. And nobody called. So I made up a name and took the albums home. So I knew right then I was talking to myself.
So that was your first DJ job?
Yeah, that was my first. I was there for about 2 years, working midnight until 8 in the morning. And one morning, I got off the air and I got in my car and I decided to drive to the hot new radio station in Los Angeles, KRLA. And I simply, Patty, I just want to see what the big guys look like. So I'm in the lobby and they're having a disc jockey meeting. And I could tell by the conversations going on that the all-night man had a sore back. was not going to be able to come in. Well, none of the other guys wanted to sit in for him because they only worked 3 hours and he worked 6 hours. So I walked up to the program director and I said, "Hi there, I'm a disc jockey." And he said, "You are?" And he must have had 100 tapes on his desk of disc jockeys from across the country that would love to work there. He said, "Do you belong to the union?" I said, "No, but I can." And I borrowed $360 to join the union. And I went on the air that night. And I was there 7 years to the day at the hot news station, KRLA.
What genre was the music? Rock and roll or?
Yeah, it was rock and roll. That's all I've ever played, rock and roll, even though I have a big love of country music, but just rock and roll.
I'm into country too. While being a DJ, you opened some sort of service for nightclubs. What was they?
Yeah, what happened was there was a nightclub in New York called the Peppermint Lounge.
Oh.
And they had a band called Joey D and the Starlighters, which, by the way, the actor Frank Pesci was the guitar player in that band. And anyway, they were doing really good business. So I decided, well, if they can open a club in New York like that, maybe we can do that in the Southern California area. So there was a need for young adult nightclubs to have live music and live acts without booze. We opened the Cinnamon Cinders, and the cinema, I had one in Long Beach, one in North Hollywood, and then we had one in Alhambra, with about 5 of them total. But what was important to me about that is that I was buying talent every week.
Oh.
Wednesday night was talent night, and I booked people like the Righteous Brothers and the Beach Boys and Jan and Dean and Chuck Berry, people like that. And that was important later on in my career when the Beatles came around.
That four. My favorite, Paul McCartney was my fave.
Is that right? Okay.
He was a cutie. Still is. So you worked with the Beatles for how long?
Well, I worked with the Beatles for 3 years. I'm the only living person to have produced a Beatle concert all 3 years they toured America.
Wow.
And what happened was, when the Beatles did the Ed Sullivan Show, I think it was like 700,000 people that night watched the show. And I will tell you honestly, on that February the 9th, 1964, the world of music changed. And so after they did the Sullivan Show, they decided they were going to tour America. And they, prior to that, had said they would never tour America unless they had a #1 record. Well, originally they signed with VJ Records, which was a soul music company, because Capitol Records said they were nothing but another little boy band. But Capitol noticed that they did pretty good business with the 2 records they sold, they recorded for VJ. So Capitol signed them, and they got their first #1 hit, I Want to Hold Your Hand, even though the mother of the president of Capitol Records said it was the worst piece of crap she'd ever heard. It became #1, and then they decided to tour America. So what the Beatles did is they went to an agency called GAC, the General Artists Corporation. GAC went to their normal promoters that they've always worked with. And the fellow in Los Angeles was a guy by the name of Lou Robin. And he was used to buying Frank Sinatra and Ella Fitzgerald and putting them in the Hollywood Bowl for $15,000. But the Beatles, well, they wanted $25,000. And they went to Lou Robin, and Robin turned them down. He said, they're nothing but another boy band. So because I was a disc jockey and because I was a talent buyer for the Cinnamon Cinders, I stepped up and I raised my hand. I said, I want them. And they said, well, you've never produced a concert. I said, I still want them. They said, well, you can have them if you have the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh.
To the Hollywood Bowl. The Hollywood Bowl says you could have the bowl if you have the Beatles. So I finally got everybody together, and that's how it all came down in February of 1964.
How did you manage to get a hold of all these wonderful, important singers?
Well, because I was a talent buyer for the cinema centers.
Mhm.
I was working with the agencies.
Oh, they had the clout.
See, and so, you know, when Lou Robin turned them down, which by the way, though, Lou Robin bought them for San Diego in 1965,
Mhm.
and it was the only concert in the 3 years they toured that lost money. Yeah. But after the Beatles, well, you know, we were successful with the Beatles, so the other acts came at us. And then I did Bob Dylan and the Rolling Stones and Jerry and the Pacemakers and the Dave Clark Five and all of those. The whole English migration came
My
through.
favorite. British Invasion, my favorite.
I'm sorry?
All the British invaders.
All of them from England came over, you know, the English migration. Now, with the Rolling Stones, I produced their concert in Southern California for 2 years, but Jagger and I didn't get along well.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you a story. I had the Dave Clark Five.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem was always getting the acts out of the buildings where the girls would rush So I had the Dave Clark Five, and I told them, look, guys, when you're done, put your instruments down, go out that door right there. I've got a limousine, and I've got a police officer on a motorcycle ready to take you out of here. And so they played their thing, and they put their instruments down, they ran out, they got into the limousine, and the motorcycle officer couldn't get his motorcycle to start. So the limo just took off up the hill. Now, while the motorcycle officer couldn't get his motorcycle started, a bunch of girls came around the limo, and we pulled them off except for one. So they went up the hill, and there was a girl on top of the car. Got up the hill in a residential area and stopped. The limo driver got out to take the girl off the top of the car. Well, there's a guy walking his dog down the street, and he thinks this guy is molesting this girl. So he walked up and he cold cocked the limo driver. And now here comes a motorcycle officer explaining, hey, don't do that now, you know. So the limo driver's on the ground, the guy is apologizing and all of that, but we finally got him out of there. But,
You have adventures, don't you?
yeah, lots of adventures, lots of fun. You know, I stayed in the rock and roll concert business until 1969.
Mm-hmm.
Did the Beatles 2 years at the Hollywood Bowl, then 1 year at Dodger Stadium. And in 1969, the music was changing. The whole San Francisco drug culture was coming around. And I didn't want to deal with it. The Janis Joplins of the world and people like that. So I sold the company, and I got out of the concert business until 1972. And then I went into my first love. I went into country music, and I was able to sign Meryl Haggard to an exclusive live performance contract. And I was with Meryl for 10 years.
Wow.
And during that time, I produced George Jones and Tammy Wynette concerts, Jerry Lee Lewis. And then I got into management, but I didn't like management. I managed Dolly Parton, Barbara Mandrell, one Everly Brother, but I didn't like management. I sort of got out of that.
It wasn't your forte.
No, it wasn't mine. Because you get a call in the middle of the night, you know, can you make a haircut appointment for me, or you know, that kind of stuff. I just didn't care for management. And I managed Dolly Parton, Barbara Mandrell, one Everly Brother, and a gospel singer by the name of Andre Crouch.
So you were dealing with Meryl Haggard.
Yeah. Haggard and I, like I said, we were together 10 years, never had a word. He was a complicated man, but I believe the greatest country music artist of all time, personally. That's the way I believe. You know, he was born in Bakersfield, California, and he lived in a boxcar, a converted boxcar. His father died when he was 9 years old, and he escaped from 13 institutions by the time he was 18 years of age.
Wow.
And he spent 2 years and 9 months in San Quentin. And an interesting story, right after I signed Meryl in 72, I got a call from the White House. And Mrs. Nixon's birthday was coming up, and wanted Haggard to appear at Mrs. Nixon's birthday. So I was on tour with Meryl and a group called the Osborne Brothers of Bluegrass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Sonny and Bobby, they're great. Anyway, I ended up taking Haggard and the Osborne Brothers to the White House in March of 72, I believe.
St. Patty's Day?
Pardon me?
Is it St. Patty's Day?
Yeah, it was St. Patrick's Day in 1972.
Wow.
And it was fun. We had a good time there. It was interesting watching Henry Kissinger clap off time to Okie from Muskogee, but
Did you wear green?
we had a good time.
Oh, yeah. When did you start getting into TV?
Well, in 1966, I was still working at KRLA, the radio station, and we had to do a disc jockey personal appearance. And Bobby Boris Pickett, remember the Monster Mash? He was there. And I said, Bobby, who's your agent? He says, well, Noel Rubeloff's my agent. And my friend Charlie O'Donnell said, Bob, you can't sign with Noel Rubeloff. I said, what do you mean I can't sign with him? He says, he only takes people that are really making a lot of money. So I bet Charlie $5 I could sign with him. I had a meeting with Noel Rubeloff, and he said, well, there's a guy in town named Chuck Barris, and he has the dating game on the air, but he's come up with a new game called the Newlywed Game, and he's looking for a host. So I went and auditioned, and thank you, Lord, I was lucky enough to win that audition, and that's how I got the Newlywed Game. Now, before we went on the air, though, we had to show the format to the big guys at ABC who flew out from New York.
Aye.
We were in this little theater, no cameras, but it was a stage and lights. And I had 4 couples up on the stage with me.
Mm-hmm.
And, couple number 1 was an unknown comedian named Dom DeLuise and his wife, Carol. But what sold the show, now remember, this is 1966, and television was pretty quiet, but what sold the show was there's a cute little blonde down at the end. And I said, what's your favorite nickname for your husband? And she said, numbnuts. And the ABC boys flipped over backwards, went upstairs, and bought the show without a pilot. Now, the first day we're going to shoot the show.
Yeah.
Very first day, I am scared to death. And I remember standing in my dressing room. Now, remember, I'm still in radio at this time. I'm standing in my dressing room, and I remember saying, Lord, please help me. I don't know what I'm doing. Help me here. There's a knock on the door. And I open the door, and there's 2 guys in suits. And I immediately flash ABC guys here to say, good luck, Bob. And the guy said, Bob? I said, yeah. He says, you're hereby ordered to appear before the United States Government Anti-Payola Committee on September 16, and you damn sure better be there.
Oh.
Served a felony payola rap 30 seconds before I went out to do my first show. Now, I hadn't done anything wrong, so they eventually canceled the payola thing.
Right.
Chuck Barris came to me after the first show, and he said, Bobby, we got to talk. I said, what's the matter? He says, you've just done something I've never seen anybody do before. I said, what'd I do, man? He said, you went a half hour without blinking.
You were in shock.
That's how frightened I was.
Oh, wow, I got it.
But excuse me, I did the Newlywed Game off and on, network and syndication for 5 decades. I did 1 after the year 2000 to give me my 5 decades.
Wow. And what are you up to now?
What am I up to now? Well, About a year and a half ago, I was walking out of a meeting with my friend Dan Metcalf.
Mhm.
He said, "You're having mobility issues, aren't you?" I said, "Yep." And I was walking bent over. I said, "I'm falling down. I'm having trouble getting up out of chairs. I'm walking bent over. I am having mobility issues." And he says, "Well, come over to my house and work out." So I went over to his house to work out. And during the next few weeks, he invented what is now called the 60 Up Balance Board. And I can look anybody in the eye and tell you that it changed my life in a very short period of time. And it's changing the lives of a lot of people. I couldn't play golf. I'm back playing golf. I'm standing up straight. I can get up out of a chair. It literally, so it did such great work with me that we brought in a couple of friends who were having some balance issues, and we tried it out on them. Bam, it helped them immediately too. So we raised about $1.5 million in 30 minutes and decided to take it and help other people. And at this point in my career, what I really want to do is help other people. And this has helped thousands of people worldwide. It's the number 60 and then up. And if any of your viewers are having balance issues or they know somebody that does, they should go to 60up.com and take a look.
Because
Because
I know someone who he has a cane, and
sorry?
he has a cane, my friend, and he has trouble balancing.
Yes.
It's very
So many
wobbly.
people, people with Parkinson's, people, as you get older, let's face it, I tell everybody I'm 70 years old plus shipping and handling, but I'm 83.
Oh, are you?
It helped me tremendously, and it helps everybody that gets it. They'll just stick with it, and it's such a wonderful product. If you're drinking coffee, I am too.
This is Celine Dion.
Oh,
Courage, it says.
mine is Bob Eubanks.
You better spare one of those.
Yep.
Let's go back. How many other shows have you done, dear? Game shows or whatever?
Well, I've done, I think, 11 different game shows and television specials. But the two most important ones, I think, were a Newlywed Game, and then I did Card Sharks over at CBS 5 years. And I really enjoyed that. That was a fun time for me. I'll tell you a quick Bob Barker story.
Okay.
At CBS, I shared a dressing room with Barker. When he was there, I wasn't, and when I was there, he wasn't. So up on the wall, there was this big ornate plaque. It said WGMC. And being the rascal that I am, I took it off the wall one day and I put it under the couch. So I'm out at my ranch and we're roping cattle, because I was in the rodeo business too. We're roping, I get an emergency phone call from the producer of The Price is Right. And he says, "Where's Barker's plaque?" I said, "What plaque?" He said, "Don't mess with me. He will not shoot any of our shows until I find the plaque."
Oh dear.
Kidding me. I said, "Okay, it's under the couch." I said, "What does WGMC mean?" He says, "World's Greatest MC." I said, "Oh." So anyway, I did Card Sharks. I did a show called Infatuation.
Oh, Infatuations. Okay.
We were pretty successful. So I got a call from a company in England, UK Living, and we ended up. I produced Card Sharks over there, but I also, Infatuation over there, but I also emceed it over there. And that was kind of fun, Then hear the announcer go, "From Hollywood, here's Bob Eubanks."
Did they love you over there?
How long?
Did they love you over there?
I don't know if they love me, but I was there for a short period of time anyway.
Okay. Um, you were in Rose Bowl. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, what happened was I was doing the Hollywood Christmas Parade, and I did that with Lee Merriweather, and then Lisa Gibbons after that.
Hmm.
We had pretty good success. So Dick Enberg, the sports guy, was doing the Rose Parade, and NBC offered him a big amount of money. So he went over to NBC. So I said, heck. So I went to Channel 5 KTLA in Los Angeles. I said, I want to do your parade. So I ended up, and I did the parade mostly with a lady by the name of Stephanie Edwards, but we were there 34 years. And I think what made us successful is that Stephanie, when she was younger, was in a band. And she knew a lot about bands. And me, with my rodeo career, I knew a lot about horses.
Mm.
So we brought something to the table that none of the other channels had. And I'm proud to say that even when we decided not to do it anymore, our ratings were twice that of all the other channels combined.
Wow.
We were on locally on KTLA Channel 5 and then the Hallmark Channel nationally. I'll tell you a Roy Rogers story. Roy Rogers and Gene Autry were my big heroes when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
One year, Roy was the Grand Marshal. And he didn't ride his horse Trigger, but he and Dale Evans rode up in the back of a convertible. They were waving at the audience and everything. Only one problem. Roy didn't go to the bathroom before he left. And so he had to go to the bathroom pretty bad.
Uh-oh.
There's no place along the 4.5 mile route, So he had a blanket on him. So he peed in his boot.
Well, when you gotta go, you gotta go.
That's very true. You got to go.
That too shall pass, I must say.
But I did that for 34 years. I did the Christmas parade for, 5 or 6 years.
Christmas, my favorite. That was my favorite. Did you go to Macy's in New York to do a Thanksgiving?
One year, we, Stephanie and I went over to Macy's and did their parade. Only 1 year. And then I did the Days of 47 parade in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yeah.
I wasn't Mormon, so they didn't invite me back.
But you are also a keynote speaker. How long have you been that?
Yeah, I'm going to go back into it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm writing a book, my second book. The first book, it's in the book, Bob, did pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm writing a book now called Short Stories About Big People. And you could ask me about practically anybody in the 60s and 70s and part of the 80s, and I can tell you a story. So what I'm going to do is take that book and the fun that I've had with some wonderful people, and I'm going to start speaking to corporate America again. I have a philosophy in life.
Mm-hmm.
My philosophy is you take what you know and apply it in other areas. And that's what I think I've done. I took my rodeo experience and applied it to the parades. I took my disc jockey experience and applied it to the nightclubs. And so I've been able to take what I know and just apply it in other areas. And that's why I believe I've been in so many businesses and been relatively successful with those businesses too. So, and now I just want to help people with the 60 Up program.
Right. Have you done a round of golf lately, or are you still kind of prisoner in your own home by the pandemic?
Well, the pandemic I've had both of my shots, by the way.
Hmm.
And it's been an interesting time, but I try to take the time, and I'm writing the book,
Mhm.
and my oldest son is 62, and my youngest is 17, and then I have two in the middle. So my young son is going to graduate from high school this year.
Yeah.
Wonderful young man, he really, really is. My oldest son is a retired LA County fireman, and he travels with me on the road. I do a couple of live shows. I have a live game show that we play casinos called Hollywood's Greatest Game Shows.
Mhm.
And then I put together a Beatles show called Backstage with the Beatles. So my oldest son travels with me, and he does all of my audio visual. I have a daughter that lives down in Orange County in the restaurant business.
Oh, yeah.
Pardon me?
What kind of restaurant?
Oh, she's just a regular, she's just a manager of a restaurant. And then I have a son, Corey, who is the #1 stunt driver in the movies.
Oh,
As Too Fast, Too Furious, Transformers, and all of those. And when he got out of high school, he said, I know I'm not college material.
mhm.
He ended up getting a job on Dukes of Hazzard.
Oh,
And he worked there for 8 years and learned his craft. And now he is truly, and I mean this truly, the #1 stunt driver in the business. And he's made a lot of money.
I'm sure he has.
Yeah.
Um, You started a TV production, didn't you? What's it called?
Started television production
Hmm,
after I got out of the concert business.
yeah.
And there was a gentleman by the name of Michael Hill, and he and I formed the Hill Eubanks group.
Oh, Hill Eubanks. Okay.
Yeah, and so we were in the production business. I produced the Dinah Shore quit her daily show, and so we sold Tony to Neil. We sold her show to the network, and we produced the Tony to Neil daily 1-hour talk variety show.
Yeah.
A show called The Guinness Game,
Oh, yeah.
Rhyme and Reason, and we had a good time in the production business. It was okay, but then later on, I decided just to get out of all of it. And, but my wife is the big wedding event planner here in Southern California. She has a company called Bella Vita Events and does really well. And I'm reasonably healthy because I'm walking up straight. Thank you, 60 up. And, I'm having a good time. That's all I can.
I'm glad you are, sir. I'm glad.
Sorry. Yeah.
You're interested in Native or Western artworks?
Yeah. What happened was we had a ranch up in a little town called Santa Ynez.
Mm-hmm.
And we put on an art show, Western art, on the ranch twice a year. But I'd always loved Western art. So I went to Home Shopping Network and I said, I want to sell Western art and Native American jewelry.
I'm a sucker for that stuff.
Yeah, well, good. Well, we were on Home Shopping Network for 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
And we would do like $700,000 in 4 hours. It was really amazing. But then Barry Diller came along and bought Home Shopping Network.
Yeah.
He had a new rule that what you don't sell, you have to take back.
Oh.
Well, if you go to an Indian down in Gallup, New Mexico, and tell him he's got to take 200 rings back, he'll blow your head off. So we had to get out of that business. That was it.
So not right. My husband's part Mohawk.
Your husband's what?
Part Mohawk.
Oh, is he? Good. Good. Yeah, we had a great relationship with the Native Americans down in New Mexico. We really did.
We're both from Toronto, Ontario area. Or Canadian.
Toronto?
Yeah, Toronto, I am from. He's from the north
Oh,
Ontario.
now where do you live now?
Here, we live in Fort Wayne, Indiana right now.
Oh, okay.
We've been in the United States for going on 26 years. 26 years.
26 years. Me too.
We're still Canadian. No. Well, oh dear. Costs a lot to be American, doesn't it?
Well, depends on where you live, you know. Costs a lot in California, I'll tell you that. Yeah. I used to take Meryl Haggard up into Canada, and we would start, you know, up on the western, and then we would go right across. And the Canadians were very interested in Meryl. They really were, but they were not too energetic. And Haggard would say to me, "Do you think they like me?" I said, "Of course."
We do.
Tickets,
Didn't
you
show
know, they bought tickets. So,
it. Yeah.
but we would go clear, and then we would end up in the Maritimes at the end. That was a fun thing too. We did big business in Canada. We really did, and enjoyed it very much. The people were very nice, but they were not real energetic, and that bothered Haggard.
Well,
Well,
I cannot. I can't give you a reason, really. So, you did something with boots?
yeah, because here again, I was in the rodeo business and all of that, and I made friends with a guy at the Tony Lama Boot Company, and long story short, I ended up being on the board of directors of Tony Lama for a long time, until we sold the company to the Justin Boot Company, and then I got out of the boot business. But I took, rather than take money, I took boots. So I've got ostrich cowboy boots coming out my ears, you know.
Wow, how many do you have altogether?
Oh, not very many now, because I've given them to friends. I only have 4 pair now.
How many awards over the years have you won? Emmys, or this or that? Or what?
I've got 9 Emmys.
Oh,
I got a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I was the last person to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in the 20th century. I'll tell you an interesting story. If you ever go to Hollywood and you walk the Hollywood Walk of Fame,
I've been there.
right in front of the Egyptian Theater.
Yeah.
And I was a doorman at the Egyptian Theater, but I got fired. And the reason I got fired is that I'm not very good with heights. So the manager, Mr. Michael John, said, "I want you to clean the marquee." I had a ladder that had wheels on it. And I would go up in the marquee and I would clean it, and then I would pull it along and I'd clean it and pull. So I'd work right my way down the boulevard. Well, I'm up on the ladder and I don't like heights anyway. And I see these 2 guys coming down the street. And they got to my ladder, one of them went boom. And I'm rolling down Hollywood Boulevard. And they're laughing like heck. So I get back up there, and pretty soon I see him coming back again. And I was ready for him.
Uh-oh.
Just as they got to the ladder, I put my feet on the outside of the ladder and I slid down. And there was a broom, I had a little broom because I was cleaning up. And I took that broom and I hit this guy right in the back of the head. And as I hit him, the manager walked out of the box office. And he said, "You're fired." I got fired for hitting a guy. So when I got my star, I wanted it right in front of the Egyptian Theater where I hit the guy in the back of the head. And that's where it is now.
Are you sure you're not Irish now?
You sure what?
You're not Irish.
No, I'm not Irish.
Well, you got the humor, my friend.
I'm Scotch Irish.
Are you now?
Yeah, there's a tree on the banks of the U River, and a yew tree on the banks of the U River. And Wales, I think.
Wales.
The Eubanks, and that's where it all came from. I wish I would have changed my name, because being in this industry, it would be nice to have a name that nobody knew about, that you do business with, and so forth.
Oh, unique. You needed a unique name.
Yep.
That was hard.
So I'm Bob Eubanks, and just don't put 2 O's in it. Okay.
You bet, eh? Well, I'm Irish, Scottish, German, Hungarian, Romanian, Canadian, Spanish.
Boy, you're Heinz 57, aren't you?
I'm a mess. I'm always fighting with myself, you know.
Do you have children, Patty?
No, I couldn't. We've been married this April 30 years now.
That's great. That's great.
So what would you like to say to my audience to encourage them in what they want to do with their lives?
Well, I've come to the conclusion that the most important entity in the world happens to be people. That we have to take care of each other, and we have to be kind to each other. And there's opportunities out there for all of us. And I mean that sincerely, for all of us. And I just think that we've got to be kind to people, that we have to be considerate. And I feel really bad for people during this pandemic. I'll give you an example. There are people who build Rose Parade floats. There's no Rose Parade. What do they do? You know, and there's so many people out of business now, and I feel really bad for them. But I think we have to take care of each other. And
we have to. We're one human race. We got to help each other. Otherwise, we're just, you know.
You have to, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we need each other. We're born to need each other.
We really do need each other. I need you, you need me, you know.
That's the beginning of a song. I write gospel music. Songs, I mean.
You write music?
I write gospel. I do lyrics. No.
Oh, you do lyrics? Okay. Yeah.
Boy, do I do lyrics.
Well, it's been a pleasure being on your show.
No, it's been a hoot meeting you.
A hoot, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
God bless you.
Thank you very much.
And I'd like to thank my audience for coming to the TV to watch my show. Merci. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week, and thank you, Mr. Eubanks.
Okay.
Godspeed, my love, until we meet again. You're always in my heart and every dream. Don't let this time apart give in to all our fears. God will keep us close from up above. So until we meet again, Godspeed, my love. God is with us always, for the rest of all our lives.